Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP. Here today we're going to be working through an NXT recap from this past episode of NXT. This is the 17th of March edition, live from Houston, Texas, and guess what? This also falls on Booker T Appreciation Night. We're going to be going through everything that happened across the course of this card, breaking it all down, going from start to finish. Let's get the reactions in. So, first and foremost, we would begin the night with the NXT Women's Championship matchup, a triple threat contest here, as Jacyjayne put her gold on the line against bitter rivals and enemies, former friends, Zarya and Sol Ruka. This will be a pretty entertaining start to the show. Very high-octane, quick-paced, very energetic matchup here to begin with. And, very competitive as well. All three women just basically be given a chance here to really show what they can do. I'm putting on a really solid opening contest of the night. We'll get to a stage in the contest where we see Sol Ruka hitting a Soul Snatcher on Jacyjayne before she then goes for a pin. Zarya, who's at ringside at this point, just is able to get into a position where she can pull Sol Ruka to the outside. Before then, she hits her with an F5 onto the floor. She rolls Sol Ruka into the ring, but Fallon Henley and Lainey Reed, a Fatal Influence, who are at ringside, they sort of stop Zarya from getting into the ring to capitalize fully on the situation. Zarya ends up taking out both women of Fatal Influence, hitting Fallon with an F5, as then we see sort of Jacyjayne place her arm over onto Sol Ruka, basically getting back into consciousness, just enough to really get a cover. She puts her arm over Sol Ruka, and that would be enough for the win here and to retain her NXT Women's Championship. So once again, and still, Jacyjayne retains here, defeating both Sol Ruka and Zarya. Personally, in my opinion, was really hoping for this to be the outcome. I think Sol Ruka and Zarya going head-to-head here, going into Stand and Deliver, doesn't need to be a title match, so I'm glad they didn't really go down that route. I'm interested now to see where Jacyjayne goes from here, though, because that's not quite so clear right now. But it does open up a couple of possibilities there for her and what she does at S&D. But yeah, definitely, just another sort of like a notch in the rivalry here between Sol Ruka and Zarya being turned up another level. Obviously, after both women walked out of this one, not as the women's champions. So yeah, pretty fun matchup to begin with here. Sol Ruka and Zarya getting into the crosshairs. Jacyjayne walks out with her gold still. Coming up after that, we would then have a Ricky Saints promo. He would head to the ring, basically saying that he had a small setback previously. But him and Ethan are on the same page because they can pivot and that they're a great tag team thanks to their victory last week, proving that they would get the result against Joe Hendry and Miles Bourne. Ricky says that they could have been on the path to tag team titles if the Vanity Project weren't the champs, obviously with the close relationship between Ricky Saints especially, as well as also Ethan Page in parts with the Vanity Project, so they don't want to go for them. He says that Ethan Page is set to become a 2-time North American champion, and that he himself is on the way to becoming a 2-time NXT champion. Ethan Page does then eventually come out pretty quickly afterwards, reminding Saints that he was the one that pinned Joe Hendry last week in that tag team contest. Ricky leaves the floor for Ethan to call out Miles Bourne, but Page then says that he's just not interested. Joe Hendry then proceeds to come out, basically saying that Ethan has a good point, before asking if Saints wants the gold as badly as Page does. Doesn't seem like he does, according to Joe Hendry. Joe brings up Stand and Deliver last year, where Saints and Page actually went one-on-one against each other for the North American Championship. That seems to cause a little friction between the two men, and a little bit of back and forth between Saints and Page. Then we see a fight breaking out. They sort of get back on the same page. They start taking out Joe Hendry, but he sort of overcomes the odds here, takes down both Ricky Saints and Ethan Page, before then we see Tony D'Angelo coming on into the situation, spearing Joe Hendry, and then takes out Ricky and Ethan afterwards to stand tall at the end of this particular segment. So the NXT title seems to have a few little names around the conversation here. Could be a fatal four-way going into Stand and Deliver, which got a pretty enticing prospect to it. But yeah, definitely high sort of stakes here going into the Stand and Deliver season. Excited to see where this goes to for that NXT Championship match, but there are 4 names currently around the situation. Coming up after that, we would then have a 3 versus 3 tag team match. We would have from Monday Night Raw the El Grande Americano and Los Americanos trio coming on down to take on the trio of the Vanity Project here. Pretty good matchup, this one. Very energetic, very high pace, kind of similar to that of the women's triple threat that we just saw at this opener of the night. This one, didn't really slow down either. So it was a great contest. I thought both teams really just had a standing out performance here. Just putting on a really good show, and it was very competitive as well. Wasn't one-sided whatsoever. Very back and forth, and just did a good job of highlighting both teams. Eventually, in the end, we do see El Grande Americano hitting a headbutt after really good work from the Los Americanos to basically just isolate Ricky Smokes in the ring. That would be enough after that headbutt to grant El Grande and the Los Americanos the victory here in this 3 vs 3 tag team match. So coming up after that, we would then go into our portion of the night, which would be commemorating Booker T. It was Booker T Appreciation Night, and we'd see Vic Joseph in the ring, hyping up Booker T essentially before then inviting him into the ring. Booker gets into the ring before Vic then reminds him that it's actually been 3 years since they first started working together as commentators on NXT. Vic says that he was told by Booker when they first started working together that all he wanted to do back then was to make moments for the fans to remember. We then see a video package playing of Booker's career, going from like the early days to the modern day commentary, as well as many messages from several NXT and WWE main roster superstars throughout the package itself. Once that's said and done, Vic does give Booker a plaque to commemorate the evening, and that sort of then sees Keanu Carver come on down, who isn't quite so impressed, basically saying that he wants all this said and done right here, right now. He's had enough with all the situation, and he starts beating people down that attempt to stop him from getting towards the ring. He then demands Booker gets out of his ring immediately, before he starts beating down Booker T's students, who are sort of in the ring at the time, with the commemorative plaque being awarded, as well as Booker T's family, who are also there. But Keanu Carver just taking out the students here. We then see Jasper Troy come on down. He absolutely charges to the ring, and he would clear Carver from that ring as well, standing tall then with Booker T, as members of the NXT roster come onto the stage to start applauding him. Booker, obviously a little bit, disgruntled from the situation, does start sort of like shouting at Robert Stone, saying, do something about this. Do something about the situation here. And that sort of sees the segment come to an end. But a lot of appreciation for Booker T. You can say what you want about him as a commentator, whether you like him, whether you don't. I think at the end of the day, he's there as an entertainer, and he does that in a very good way. Some iconic deliveries on commentary that, obviously are beloved just from many different superstars. And he's just a great class act to have on the mic, isn't he? He's just a brilliant voice to hear, and makes for some really funny, entertaining moments. So going on from there then, we would then move on to our second half of the show. This would see the Women's Speed Championship being defended by Fallon Henley. Actually her first defense of the title, so quite a long time in between her winning it back way when. And now, obviously, this matchup here against Ren Sinclair, we're talking like a few months down the line here. So the Speed Championship not really getting too much sort of say recently. But this matchup in particular, it was probably your average Speed matchup, to be fair. It had a little bit longer than your typical one, because obviously it's being 5 minutes as a maximum time. But I think they only needed about 3.5 minutes for this one sort of thing, so not too much longer than your regular contest. We would have eventually in the end here, Ren Sinclair locking in the final wrench. Fallon Henley being very weakened down here. I mentioned in the first match of the night, she had actually an F5 on the outside by Zarya, and she had sort of like a lot of tape on her shoulder here, so really nursing that weakened area from the start of the night. And that really played dividends here, because when Ren Sinclair locked in the final wrench, my God, you could hear Fallon screaming from the submission. She basically just shouts, I tap, because she can't physically do it herself. And then we have Ren Sinclair being declared as your new Women's Speed Champion. But not a bad match, to be fair. Quite high pace, as they always are. But Fallon doing a good job of selling that injury from the start of the night. Ren Sinclair picking up her first singles championship in WWE, full stop, whatever you want to call, any division, whatever. It's a taste of gold for Ren Sinclair, finally, after quite some time in the making. So fair play to Ren Sinclair, and Fallon's reign comes to an end. As to what she does next, well, we'll have to wait and see. Coming up after that, we would have Birthright, their first official match as a, I guess, completed group, you could say, now that we had the addition of Charlie Dempsey from last week. This season opportunity for Birthright to go up against Hank and Tank to advance in the NXT Tag Team Championship tournament. The winners will advance on. With Hank and Tank looking to close out the match, they lay out Lexus King, who gets in the way. He's not even the legal man in the matchup here. It's actually Channing Sax Lorenzo and Uriah Connors involved. But Lexus does sort of like get a little bit too into it, gets into the ring, and does get punished for it by Hank and Tank. They lay him out. As that's happening, Uriah Connors does tag in secretly, though, from Stax. And Hank and Tank do sort of like lay out Stax as an eventuality right after that one, unknowing that Uriah Connors is the legal man. Uriah gets into the ring whilst Hank and Tank are basically distracted by the situation, rolls up Hank, and that'll be enough for them to get the victory here. and Birthright move on in the NXT Tag Team Championship tournament. So obviously the winners of this tournament will face Vanity Project, and looks like Birthright are one step closer to getting that championship opportunity. We would then went into our main event of the show. This would be a steel cage match for the NXT Women's North American Championship. jacyjayne would look to get her gold back against tatumpaxley. Long-term enemies, these two, former friends eventually, quite some time ago. And yeah, their last match was terrific. It was an absolutely amazing contest between the two of them. Did this one live up to that? Personally, I wouldn't say it did, but it was still a fun matchup regardless. Started off quite intense with Tatum making her entrance into the steel cage to begin with. Izzy just attacking her straight out the gates, brawling with a little bit on the outside of the structure before the match officially began. Eventually gets back in, brings a steel chair into the contest, and yeah, we do see quite a lot of sort of environmental damage in this one. They really made use of the steel cage. Just moments where Izzy would go crazy and just slam tatumpaxley all over the shop and just basically just like squishing her against the sides, and the steel chair coming into play as well. So there was quite a lot of sort of vicious intent here from jacyjayne, as you would expect. But I mentioned the use of the steel cage, and it gets to a stage where Paxley sort of starts to overcome the power of jacyjayne. After several smashes into the steel cage, she sort of avoids a bomb onto the steel chair in the ring, and she actually instead hits a sunset flip powerbomb onto jacyjayne, sort of like star maneuver. And then she follows up with a cemetery drive. That would be enough for tatumpaxley here to get the victory in this matchup and to retain her women's North American Championship. Following from the end of this matchup, though, Tatum sort of works her way over to the ramp, starts to celebrate with her championship, posing with it. And she's suddenly just blindsided by Blake Monroe, who appears out of the bottom of the stage, from underneath it, and she just drags tatumpaxley down. The title falls onto the ramp, and then we just see Blake Monroe appear afterwards again, picking the title up and posing with it to end the show. So obviously Blake Monroe still very much not happy about how she lost her championship in the first place. Hasn't had a rematch for it since losing it. I think we're probably going to get that going in and towards Stand and Deliver. Could even be at the show itself. Blake Monroe's looking for that title to get it back. But there we go. That is the NXT show from Houston, Texas here. Also on Booker T Appreciation Night. In terms of the show itself, I thought it was pretty good. Like, it was built up to be, a pretty solid show. I think it was in parts for sure. Maybe a little bit underwhelming based on the matches that were announced and things. But I think if this was like a PLE slot, maybe it would have been a lot better. But regardless of the fact, though, enjoyed it. Thought it was a good show. Thought it was solid. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I don't think it was a stellar NXT, but it was a good one, and it was a solid one, and very entertaining and fun as well. So lots going on here. We got a new speed champion crowned in Sinclair. We had 3 women's titles on the line here, so a very women-orientated show. tatumpaxley retaining her gold, now looking to go up against Blake Monroe by the looks of things, and jacyjayne being successful at the start of the night with Soruka and Zarya coming to a head again. That's going to escalate into next week, I would imagine, as Sol is going to be calling out Zarya on the show. So yeah, what jacyjayne does now, though, I got my preferences, I got my hopes. We'll have to see what happens to be, though. But for now, though, yeah, it's a great retain. The reign of Jacy has been great, and we continue from here on. But for now, everybody, that has been the NXT recap here at The Push. If you like this one, please let us know in the comments what you thought, whether it's good, bad, and different. We'd love to hear anything that you're talking about, as anything sort of helps us here. And speaking of which, please consider hitting a like on our video, subscribing to our channel, and keeping up with future releases going forward. For now, though, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you on the next one. Take it easy, and goodbye for now.